Okay, everybody. Good evening. Welcome. Thanks for coming. So my name is Sam Baker. I'm part of Walk2COP 26. You'll hear a little bit more about our walk, just along with your journeys in a minute, so I won't go into that. But what I will say is that when we were setting up our walk, we certainly got a lot of inspiration, good ideas and support from other people doing walks, and particularly Push, who I hope is going to be here a little later. So Push Krishnamurthy. Also YCCN, raise your hand if you're from, yeah, thank you. So Natasha, not here, is it Natasha? Thank you, some great ideas and help along the way. So, and I guess I was struck by the spirit of, collaboration and cooperation. Nobody's trying to compete, nobody's trying to sort of get their brand ahead or anything else. And I loved that, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So it's really in that spirit that we offer this up. It's just an opportunity for everybody to tell their story in brief. We'll capture as much as there'll be a live stream, sorry, not a live stream, a recording, which everybody will have access to. We'll take some stills, etc. So then you can use that in whichever way you want to do that as well. I suppose the other point to make is that I think the journeys of any shape or form are incredibly powerful. And we know that because we've been behind you most of the way, right? So to begin with, we just heard about you generally sort of in the news or in media or whatever else. But as we got closer to Glasgow, of course, we heard people tell your story to us. Oh, yeah, the bear's just gone past. Or, have you seen the cyclists? They're fantastic. Or, and when we were feeling sort of, oh, yeah, we're going to Glasgow, it's day 20, we're exhausted. And they're like, yeah, but a 13-year-old girl just bicycled past yesterday. So it wasn't always good for us. But the fact is it had a big impact. And, people were talking about it. You could see the sort of wake of interest and excitement following those people, following you lot as you went forward, and hopefully us as well. So I know it makes a difference. The things that we're all engaging people on, probably all slightly different, but that doesn't really matter. It's all under the broad umbrella of climate, of COP26, and a big action and change that's required. So I look forward to hearing the specifics. And I know, for instance, you guys, policy driven, very interested to hear how that's played out. So the format of the next sort of hour and a half, possibly slightly longer, we are delighted to have Councillor Anna Richardson with us from Glasgow. So welcome. We'll have a short address from Anna. Anna's got a background in geography. She tells me she got lost on the way here, but anyway, I'm sure. Okay, but studied geography nevertheless. She was an elected councillor in 2015 for Langside. But then critically for us and for this conversation, she's actually the city convener for sustainability and carbon. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for saying the words that you do. So when that's over, and Lordy has trained us well on this through email, and I hope everybody's read those emails who's going to speak. So we have 5 minutes per journey, whatever that journey is. Okay. So the idea is you will be called up on the stage. There's stairs on the side here. Lord is going to manage this with a whip. So people come up the stairs and speak here. The people who are going to speak afterwards, you can just begin to sort of think you're going to hang around. I mean, it's not going to be a huge scramble. So just get ready to come up as well afterwards. So 5 minutes of talk. I will time it. If you exceed the 5 minutes, you're cut. Few questions from the floor, and we move on to the next, just to make sure that we get everybody in. Okay. There almost certainly will be a chance at the end for everybody to talk. There's a bar next door anyway, so let us repair to that for those that want to. Thank you, Lordy, who's one of our walkers, for setting this all up. And just before we go, and Anna, before we hear from you, what we'd like to do is just have a minute's silence for, so the team, so this was Sasha Dench and Dan Burton. So you probably read about them about 5 weeks ago. They were coming out by paraglider. There's a film now created by Joanna Lumley about their journey. They weren't going to have the film, but they decided to go ahead with it. They had a terrible accident. Sasha's recovering. Dan Burton lost his life. And they would have been here with us. So, they were making good progress, raising big awareness, looking at different projects, doing sort of the things that many of us have been doing. So if we can, let's just have a minute's silence for them. Quick think about them and anybody else in similar situations you might know, and then we'll move on. Okay, thank you for that. We will tell them we did that. I'm sure it'll be appreciated. Probably a little bit perplexing for the people who came in a bit later, but anyway, never mind. Anna, please.
Thank you so much for having me here. Can I just defend myself slightly in my own city, say that while my brain knows that the union had moved, my legs took me the same journey I did many, many times as a student many years ago, off out drinking at the old union. So that is my excuse. My legs didn't connect up with my brain. Maybe that tells us something that we will explore later in the evening. But thank you so much to all of you for having me here today. It's such a pleasure to celebrate and to mark the end of your journeys to COP and to reflect a little on what an achievement that is for all of you. So can I offer you a very warm welcome to Glasgow on behalf of the city. So with my sustainability portfolio, I lead on a wide range of issues, but one of my biggest passions is improving the conditions for Glaswegians to walk, wheel and cycle. We generally talk about active travel in terms of our shorter everyday journeys, certainly not hundreds of miles at a time. But nonetheless, walking, cycling and travelling actively in any form brings such benefits to health and well-being, and it gives us space to think as well. And that's something that's so often missing in our busy lives. It reconnects us to our surroundings, to nature, to our built environment, and possibly most importantly, the people that we share this world with. As in so many aspects of our lives, what is good for our minds and our bodies is also what's good for the planet. So to arrive here at COP26 after such a journey that you've all taken, it must be an indescribable feeling, and it's not one that I can imagine. And the urgency and the scale of the task that's ahead to take the climate action that's necessary, however hard it may be, feels daunting at times. I'm sure all of us feel that on this journey. And Glasgow, like so many cities, has set ambitious targets that we are very proud of, and we have a determination to succeed in achieving them. If we want to play our part in securing a future for the next generation, we have to meet our net zero carbon target of 2030. There is no choice about it. We must decarbonise our transport and our heat networks, our food system and our waste management. We must reduce consumption and embed circular practices in every sector of our economy. But we must also do these things while we lift our citizens out of poverty, out of cold homes, often in neighbourhoods that have no access to cheap fresh food, and to ensure that good green jobs are available across all of our communities. Glasgow's climate plan, just published recently, will directly address inequality as well as climate. That's the only way that this transition can be done fairly. And certainly, I hope you're feeling there's a sense of momentum here in Glasgow. COP has helped to focus everyone's minds over the last, what turned out to be 2 years, and it's raised everyone's expectations. Businesses are investing in and engaging with sustainability more than we've ever seen before. And as a council, we've put in place plans and strategies that we need to ensure we enable, deliver and support decarbonisation over the next decade. So we've introduced new plans around food growing and food production, an active travel strategy that will change how all of us can move around the city. And we've already got numerous projects being delivered on the ground that reallocate road space away from vehicle traffic and onto more active modes. We're reviewing every aspect of our waste collection and our waste processing. We're partners in projects that generate renewable energy, retrofit traditional homes, and produce carbon-free heat. We're working with businesses on circular practices in challenging sectors, including construction and textiles. We're leading the way on zero-emission fleets by upgrading our own council vehicles, requiring significant investment, as well as installing EV charging for domestic vehicles and taxis. And we're planting trees, we're managing flood risk, and we're improving the biodiversity of all of our green spaces to create more pleasant outdoor space for everyone to use. But this is just the start, and we can't do it alone, especially when we have big asks of all of our people in terms of how they begin to live their lives in lower carbon ways. Because we need to make this transition to a low carbon world with the blessing and the support of our citizens. The pace of change has to be rapid, but we have a better chance of getting there when we go together. So we've built engagement and discussion into our climate planning. From inviting campaigners into our climate emergency working group in 2019, they came and protested in a committee and we welcomed them in and asked them to do some work. Recently, we've hosted a Citizens Climate Assembly, listening to the people of Glasgow and hearing how we can embed their ideas in our work. And raising the voices that too often go unheard is a task that we must all strive to do better. So our recent Democracy Pioneers programme, in conjunction with local organisations, used legislative theatre to provoke some often uncomfortable discussions with the council about how we engage with young and disabled people, especially around climate. From that process has come learning and, I hope, change. Because conversations can be so powerful, they can enable us to connect with each other, to learn, and to become empowered. Each of the conversations you've initiated on your journeys will, I know, have had a ripple effect and spark further engagement with the climate crisis. We have a huge task ahead, so we'll need as many people on board as possible. And of course, communication goes both ways. It's crucial that leaders continue to hear the demands of us all in terms of faster, bolder climate action. So let's together make this COP count for all of our futures. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anna and Sam, for the introduction. So I will start by calling two groups at a time. The first group will come and speak, and the second, hopefully, will start preparing themselves to get up on the stage. So let's start with Pilgrimage for Nature. Helen and Jim, welcome.
Hi, great to meet you.
Hi there, thanks for all coming out tonight. It's great to be able to speak to you. We're just going to talk very briefly about our particular pilgrimage we were a part of, and then Helen's going to sing you a song. Our pilgrimage was Pilgrimage for Nature, also going under the moniker of Listening to the Land. There were about 25 pilgrims set out from London of all kinds of backgrounds. So we had a farmer, we had a pub manager, students, librarians, great diversity of people. But that presented, not that, but there were challenges en route. What we were all united by was a great feeling of love for the land and concern for the future. So to be able to do this pilgrimage at this time and combine it with coming here was obviously such a beautiful opportunity. And I think we're all very glad that we took that opportunity. It was interesting, it was a chance to slow down. The gift of the way the pilgrimage was set up was that we were able to ask people's opinions along the way. We were not particularly coming with an agenda or necessarily a message of our own, but we were talking to people en route and we were able to ask what their wishes were and thoughts that they'd like to be shared in this conference. One way we framed that question was, if you were to wake up the morning after the conference, what is the news you'd most like to hear on the news that had taken place in the conference? And people opened up, and it was quite surprising. People who might not do so ordinarily or dismiss us based on our appearance. So we had all kinds of people tell us all kinds of things. You can find out more about that. We have a website. It's called pilgrimagetotheland.com. There's links to various other channels. There were also a group of...
Sorry, Jim. Yeah. It's Listening to the Land, Pilgrimage for Nature.
Okay, listen to her. I'm not au fait with the computer side of things, obviously, others are. So it was a great gift and a great privilege to be able to do it, and it's been a fantastic experience. We walked through, obviously, various different landscapes, one of which was the Ridgeway. Helen felt inspired to write the song that we will...
It's one of my way of listening to the land is through art and writing songs, so I thought we'd just share this with you. Oh, the rich way in the sun, September has begun with a scorching summer's breath, and the fields here are so wide that my heart, it shrinks inside to see the land so bereft of the hedgerows, of the trees. We give thanks for every breeze that makes good this body's sweat. See the ones who came before, herding flocks across the moor. Their work is done, we're not done yet. All the hedgerows, all the trees, we give thanks for every breeze that makes good this pilgrim sweat. See the ones who came before, herding flocks across the moor. Their work is done, we're not done yet. Oh, won't you take me in your arms and remember all my charms? I am old and I am scarred. Who will love me if not you? What you've done, you can undo. Take me with you in your heart. Take me with you in your heart. Take me with you in your heart.
Yes, thank you very much. It's great to see you all here tonight, and
Yeah,
many
it's
blessings.
brill.
Thank you.
Can we ask a question or two?
Oh yeah, yeah, of course.
Anybody?
I mean, one thing I don't know one thing that many people said was we want action, not just more promises. That came to me a lot, and a lot of people connecting, like through their grandchildren and children, you know, and feeling the pain of that. You know, what are we going to give our grandchildren, our children? Yeah.
I think there's a sense that a lot of people understood the issues, but there was a thirst for catalysts to change and political will, and the feeling that it was worth people engaging. So that was one thing that certainly came across.
Is there, are you doing it with associated with a particular organisation, or are you just
Yeah, it's independent in a way. The performer Jolie Booth, together with Anna Lehman, who's an activist for many years, an ecological activist, they got their heads together while Jolie was doing a pilgrimage last year and opened it up. So applied for some funding from the Arts Council because there were many artists and performers involved. And that didn't entirely come off, but it was open to an open call, and we all then had to, you know, raise the money and either through the crowdfunding basically. Yeah. Mm.
One main thing we did was to conceive of and perform a play that was performed and written en route, which we've been performing up here in Glasgow. So that was one kind of coherent strand that drew us all together. So.
Yeah. we were working on, the only time to actually work on anything, a song, for example, was while walking. Because I don't know if you've had this experience, the business of practical camping, it just takes up every ounce of time and energy at the end. So when we got to a place, we'd have arranged a sort of open meetings with the communities where we were, in the hall or village hall or whatever. And then we'd have this kind of shambolic but lovely sort of improvised performance that got gradually more and more something-y, you know, from things that were just started to kind of things that were more, oh yeah, like we want to share this. And we're continuing that. We're not finished with that, you know. Yeah.
Brilliant. Maybe later.
I will find out if there's any more. We were at the landing hub, but I'm not sure now
I
what.
think there may be one booked for Saturday night. So if you check the
Yeah.
various forums, hopefully there'll be a confirmation of that.
I'll check that out. I'll check that out for you. All right.
Brilliant. Big hand for
Thank
Bill
you.
Jones.
Thank you very much.
Look forward to hearing all your stories.
Thank you. And I do realize that I didn't call the second group to prepare themselves. So, then we will start with Anna from Ride the Change, and then Annika and Hans, get ready.
Hi, everyone. My name's Anna, and I am one of the hundreds of cyclists who came to the COP by bike. So my group was the Ride the Change bike ride. There were lots of other groups, some of which we met up with on the way. Ride the Change was organised. Oh, I was going to start timing myself just so I know what I'm doing. Okay. So Ride the Change was organised by a group called Adventure Uncovered, and they focus on sustainable adventures, and a group called Break the Cycle, and also a group called the Do Nation. So one of the advantages of I guess one of the effects of the ride was that the people on the ride were encouraged to raise not money, but pledges. So the Do Nation, obviously that means that there's a play on words, donation, but also something that you do. It's about making pledges to low carbon behavior pledges. So things like I will leave the car at home one day a week, or I'll go vegan one day a week, or I will fly less, and all these kinds of things. So a lot of the riders who we came with, there were over 170 involved in total. About 70 of us made the whole journey, which I should say was from London. So we cycled from London up to Glasgow. And even though many of them got here, had a good night's sleep, and then went home again, they had effectively created a lot of low carbon behavior by doing so through pledges from their friends and families. Now, my motivation for cycling here is twofold. So I am a long distance cyclist. I've ridden my bike for all my whole life, and riding my bike long distance is usually how I get around. And it kind of seemed to fit to come up to Glasgow by bike. The other motivation was that, as you can see by the sign here, I'm the director of a campaign group called Flight Free UK. So we really wanted to focus on the fact that there are low carbon ways to travel. Coming by bike to the climate conference is perhaps not something that Boris Johnson might do, but we were really keen to show that it is possible to travel in low carbon ways. Most of what we do is promote train travel, coach travel, generally overland travel. But yeah, we kind of, I guess it was sort of a, hey, you know, if this many people can ride their bikes, then you guys can definitely get out of your private jets. So the ride itself, it took us 7 days to reach the outskirts of Glasgow. Our final day was only an easy 7-mile roll into the city centre, but we had travelled. So it was London to Oxford, to Coventry, to Stoke, to Preston, to Penrith, and then to Dumfries, and then up through Dumfries and Galloway to here. And so kind of averaging 70 miles or so a day, with one day, the Penrith day, 90 miles over the moors, which was extremely epic. There was some good old Cumbrian weather, a couple of road closures through floods. And actually, I was bringing up the rear with the group, and we ended up descending off the moors in the dark. Ooh. So that was a bit tricky, but yeah, it all added to the epic nature. I think that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Epic journeys. And one of the things that I found the most touching about the whole thing, and I think you said this, Sam, was about the camaraderie that was built with the other people on the ride, and we just helped each other. We supported each other. When there were punctures, we all rallied around to fix them. When people were cold and had lost their enthusiasm for the ride, we all helped kind of buoy each other up. So that was a really, really important aspect of it all. But to kind of, yeah, so getting here is one thing, but being here is another. So one of the reasons that I've decided to come to the COP is because of the campaign Flight Free UK, to try and raise awareness of the climate impact of aviation. And I will just finish by saying that we run a Flight Free pledge, and I've already spoken to a few people in the crowd about it. And the idea is to well, our behavior change method is to ask people to take 1 year off flying as a way to reduce emissions, but change the conversation around aviation. And we know that in this COP, the government is going to say, hey, we can solve it through technology and through sustainable aviation fuel. There's nothing sustainable about sustainable aviation fuel. Yeah, I was on the Greenwash March just now. But that's the government's tactic, and we know that's not going to help. So we need to reduce the amount we fly, the amount we drive, the amount of meat we eat. We know we need to do that, and that's actually going to cut emissions. So I'm going to ask in my last 20 seconds if everybody in the room, if you're interested, please go to our website, flightfree.co.uk, and make a pledge to take a flight-free year. Even if you already don't fly, that's fine, because we want to show the government there are lots of people who are interested in doing this, because we want to show that that's not the answer. And if you currently are one of the people who do fly, then it makes even more impact. So thank you very much. 5 seconds over.
People over there on the floor, there are plenty of seats. If you want to sit up here, up to you. But a couple of questions for Anna.
And that's okay if you don't have any, because okay, go on, Sam.
Doing those pledges?
Yes.
Is that by count of sin or by some other sort of, how have you been collecting them, and what have you collected? Yeah, so it's on our website, which is flightfree.co.uk, and you can just sign up on there. You can get your phone out of your pocket right now and do it. We have 3 options: flight free for the year, no holiday flights for the year, because some people need to fly for work or to visit their family, and then the final choice is flight free for life. But that's on our website, and we have social media, Flight Free UK. I'm Flight Free for life. Oh. Have you managed, have people taken to it? Yeah, so we've got nearly 3,000 pledges for this one, Flight Free 2022. So help us get more. Thank you very much.
And Sunita, do you want to wave, Sunita? Sorry to put, so Sunita will also is also part of the campaign, and she will, and I possibly will be hanging around afterwards to answer anyone's questions. And we've got loads of flyers. Yeah, ironically. Is that cool?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. And now I welcome Annika and Hans from Pilgrims Walk for Future.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here and see you all. Pilgrims Walk for Future is an initiative of the Church of Sweden, and we chose the name to be in solidarity with Fridays for the young people of Fridays for Future. And so our walk started on July 19th from Vadstena, Östergötland, and we walked through Sweden, Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands, England, and Scotland, around 1,000 miles. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And it was all for the climate, obviously, for climate justice. And the purpose is like at least twofold: to put pressure on decision makers and to walk with the 5 demands to the governments of the world of the ACT Alliance, global network of churches. But also to reflect on our own lives and to encourage like everyone we met to reflect on their lives and how they can lead more fossil-free lives. So we obviously met a lot of people along the way. We slept in parish halls mostly. Hans, you want to continue?
Yeah, I'm Hans, and is this on or? Hello? Yeah. We realized that walking is almost the most revolutionary thing you can do these days. It's a good way to start, to put one foot in front of the other. You make things happen, really. By walking, by starting, you realize that something can happen in this world. And I think somebody, the first couple who came here was making this song about nature and so on. And when you walk, you realize that when you walk far enough, and then you realize that the landscape, the nature walks with you or through you in a way. And I think that's also a very helpful thing to realize, that we are made aware of that we are just a tiny little part and piece in time and eternity compared with the rest of the planet. And this is a very good start as well to be in when you try to make a better world, to realize that we are not the kings or queens of this place, but we are a part of it in a wonderful and dynamic way. And I think it's so amazing to meet all these people during the long way, and all this generosity that we get just by walking. And of course, it was because we were walking to COP26, of course, as well. But I think just by walking, something happened when we were passing through these cities and villages and so on. And we met such a wonderful, how do you say, the welcoming and love, and they wanted to take care of us. And I think it's important for human beings like us to dare to be in that position. That's when the true revolution can begin, I think.
Any questions? Yes. I don't know, maybe like disappointment with the leaders, I would say, is something that came up sometimes. That, or I got the feeling anyway that the people in general, obviously those whom we met, I would say, are not maybe people in general, because they have somehow come to us or contacted us or been part of preparing a welcome for us. But anyway, that they wanted much more radical measures than they thought that their politicians wanted. So at least there are a lot of people out there who are ahead of our politicians, and who are just like doing a lot of work, but waiting for the leaders to kind of start moving. I don't know, what would you say?
Relationship with some of the churches here? Did you sort of maintain a network of sort of church relationships and dependencies here, or not really?
Here in the UK. Well, it was mostly, I would say also that we worked together with the German Pilgrimage for Climate Justice, that with the name of Geht Doch. So from Münster on, we walked together with them, and they were around 20, and we were 8 to 10 Swedes. And so they, in the UK, it was the Germans that did the organization and the preparations, but it was together with the SCIAF and CAFOD, so the Catholic agencies for what do you say, overseas work, CAFOD and SCIAF. Yeah, so it was a lot of Catholic parishes that we, mainly, I think, in the UK that we slept in. And, yeah.
So first of all, congratulations on such an epic one. That's a seriously long walk. You both have extremely good trousers, right? So we are envious. Anyway, credit to you both.
Thank you so much. And now I will call YCCN group, followed by Walk2COP26. So welcome, Natasha and Tim.
Hello. Ooh. Hello, I'm Tash, and we are a group from YCCM, which is the Young Christian Climate Network. We are a group of 18 to 30s that has organised the relay to COP26. The relay began on June the 14th, just after the G7 summit in Carbis Bay in Cornwall. We've walked 1,200 miles over 108 days. Thank you. And we've done it in a relay. So we've had 2,500 people join us walking as part of the relay. Along the way, we've been so blessed to have been supported by UK churches across the UK. We haven't paid for a single night of accommodation. We haven't bought any of our own food. We've just been supported and blessed and eaten an awful lot of cake.
And it's my job to tell you about just the experience of doing that and the warmth and generosity of people. You know, as Tash said, we didn't pay for a single night of accommodation, but also through this, walking through the land, slowing down to 3 miles an hour, as many people in this room know is so special. We've been able to engage, you know, many churches and people who, you know, climate change was new for them. They've never engaged before, and then this was their first time. But also engaged across different groupings. You know, we visited certain towns, and, you know, there was one instance, the day of the 3 breakfasts, where some walkers were greeted by breakfast with the Methodists, then after that an Anglican church, and then after that a Catholic church in a town that is famous for its division. And even that, you know, the Anglican priest came, the Anglican bishop came to the Catholic church. So just that real sense of unity, welcome, warmth, connection was really strong.
And the message that we've been working with is really one of a demand for climate finance. So our asks of COP26 were for a reinstatement of the foreign aid budget, for the developed countries to finally deliver on their $100 billion a year for climate finance, which has been promised for 12 years and never delivered, for proper serious mechanisms for loss and damage for climate vulnerable countries, and for cancellation of the debts of climate vulnerable countries as well, so they can properly tackle climate change. So those are the demands that we brought to COP26, and that we are still hoping will be met.
So it's been amazing to arrive here finally in Glasgow, and we're now praying and talking together as a group, working out what to do next. One of the things that we have been working on this week is just talking to Christians and other UN delegates and people around the world to see if we can maybe build relationships with people elsewhere and work together to end the climate crisis. So that's the future, hopefully.
Are there any questions?
Lou.
So far I've heard mostly the positive stories, but are also difficult.
So one major difficulty of the whole relay is we've decided to take a boat with us. Our boat is 3 meters tall and is made of a wicker coffin. And it has been easily the most logistical nightmare to get from Cornwall to Glasgow. It's now residing in St George's Tron, and we'll be taking it on the march on Saturday. So if you see a giant boat, that's us. There's also been a heck of a lot of blisters, a heck of a lot of painful feet. And the weather as we approached Glasgow got pretty awful as well, but I think that's some of the difficulties.
In terms of challenging conversations, to be honest, everybody's been very receptive. I'd say the biggest challenge has been that, you know, there was a hand-in last night to the UN, and the response that we got from, you know, a request to Alok Sharma to attend was actually not even a director in the civil service, but a deputy director recorded a message that, to be honest, just felt quite, you know, surface level. They hadn't really paid attention to our asks. And so in that sense, you know, the failure of connection is just with our political leadership rather than with the people on the ground.
Yeah, we were asking people to write to their MPs to either sign our pledge for just climate finance or to contact Liz Truss at the Foreign Office to ask the same. We managed to engage with 143 MPs along the way, and I can't tell you the amount of letters that included, but more than 143 at least. So yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all, and we welcome Walk2COP26.
Hello, everybody. So we are Walk2COP26, and we are about half a dozen walkers. And it feels as if our walking achievement is quite modest compared to the last two, because we only walked 500 miles. We started in Camden, which is one of the London boroughs, and walked up through the middle of the country to Glasgow. And we chose Camden because Camden was the first council to hold a citizens' assembly about the climate crisis. And so we thought that was actually quite a meaningful starting point for us. And we used our walk as a way to both broaden the conversation around the climate crisis and emergency, and to talk about what people are doing, should do, could do, and the power of working together. So in advance of the walk, we had organized about a dozen different events, often at the end of the day's walk, or sometimes in the middle of, where we got together people from local councils, companies, community groups, and we had that cross-organizational conversation around what's happening on the ground. And certainly from my point of view, those conversations were very uplifting. I took away a lot of hope from what's actually happening locally. And I think a lot of people are doing a lot of good stuff in their communities. And some of those stories are the stories that we've carried forward with us. I think also personally, from a walking point of view, we were quite ambitious. As Sam mentioned earlier on, we started late in the game. We were following all of you. Everybody else had been through all the various towns before we came. We didn't start until the 7th of October. So our walk was 25 days and we were walking 20 miles a day, which is quite a lot. So that's from my perspective. I'll hand it over to other members of the walking team just to share with you what it meant to them to do this walk.
So I think compared to many of you, we are still first-class workers because we buy our food and we pay for our accommodation. So the most valuable thing I've learned is I have learned to use a walking stick at a relatively young age. I possibly need to use it from next year when I'm 50, so quite timely. Now, two more things. I met amazing people. like A-level students who is now campaigning at COP26, A-level student who planted hundreds of trees already, and all of you guys. I also seen amazing places, except for the one between Kalai and Gretna, when I got seriously lost and was rescued by the local police. So that's my.
Yep. I had one word coming out a few times: pilgrims or pilgrimage. And of course, this is Walk to COP26. But yesterday I spoke here and I mentioned that word pilgrimage because that's been one of my mantra, or instead of using the word walk, because I'm a priest and I work for the Catholic Church in different parishes over the last few years and in different countries. So first of all, from this kind of negative side of the story, in the sense that over time, within the churches, my church, Catholic Church, you felt there was not enough energy put into what we are now discussing here, what is going on here in Glasgow, until very recently. I never thought I'll be able to take part in making any difference anywhere, because opportunities never came until I had a call from my friend Sam, who said, there's something going on, which is to walk to Glasgow, and would you like to join us? So during that time, I had been involved with a small group of parishioners who are involved in what we call Live Simply, organized by CAFOD, Catholic for Overseas Development. And as we were discussing, I mentioned this possibility. So many of the other parishioners or friends, they would say, what are you doing? I said, I'm going on a pilgrimage. To where? I said, to Jerusalem.
I'm sorry, mate. That's 5 minutes gone.
And of course,
I can't favor our team. I'm sorry.
I've arrived.
So we're now to the questions. So
Thank
you can ask Father Laguli a question if you want to, or you can ask one of the other walkers a question, and we can say what we're preparing. So, any questions, anybody?
How did you make known to the people that saw you walking that you were doing this for climate? Was there something that you carried, or did you see something, or whatever?
We're much less creative than the rest of you guys. So no, we didn't carry anything. We did, however, reach out to the climate action networks throughout the Midlands and other places in the UK. We also organized events which were cross-sector, cross-stakeholder events, so local authorities coming together with schools, coming together with faith groups, coming together with everyday people. And so they all came together, spoke to each other. We had roundtables, and we also included business in that. And so that's how the message was spread. It was really based on the publicity that the people on the ground in the places we went through amplified.
There's a song as well composed.
Of course, there was a song.
Yeah, if you're allowed.
No.
A question. What is a stubborn climate optimist?
Do you want to answer that, sir? Okay, well, I'm a massive fan of, I'm sort of fangirl of Christiana Figueres, so a massive fan. Apparently these were printed for 2015. If you want one, they're building schools, so breaking bridges. Must be, can't be breaking bridges.
Bridging ventures.
Bridging ventures.
Thank you. So what does stubborn optimists look like? I mean, I think actually sometimes it's been a little bit difficult to be an optimist on the way up. I think the events we've had have been really uplifting and fantastic, but that's people in the tent normally, they come to it because, they've got a point of view and they're really sympathetic. I think a lot of the one-to-ones we've had, people get the climate thing, obviously they're hearing on the news all the time, but the next bit is quite often a but, and it's, but, can't afford it, can't this, can't that, government's not doing this or whatever. So I think being a stubborn optimist for me means just trying to, A, find your own agency and do something, even if it's small, and then B, help others find theirs. And then through that agency, getting it all moving. And being stubborn means just not giving up, because there's a lot of those buts. We had a few. So can I ask a question? I'm allowed to ask questions as a chair. So Nicole, what did you take away from the trip?
So I'm a part-time walker. I've only walked 150 miles out of the 510. But I just want to say, because I'm so awe-inspired by everybody who's done the journeys that they've done. And I just wish that our leaders were as committed and dedicated to climate action as everybody in this room, because if they were, we would be seeing a different set of outcomes. So I just wanted to say that. Why did I join the walk? I decided a few years ago, I'm a Green Party councillor in the London Borough, and my portfolio as an opposition member and co-leader of our Green Group is climate action. We declared a climate ecological emergency 3 years ago. We have created a green narrative in my borough, and we've had a citizens' assembly now, and we are at the point where we're now creating a climate action plan, a borough-wide climate action plan, which everybody within the borough will be able to feed into. And I, about a year ago, decided that I couldn't just talk the talk, I needed to literally walk the walk. I had wanted to walk to COP last year, and it obviously wasn't possible because of postponement. This year I couldn't do the full walk because I had other commitments. But just very, like, I've signed that I haven't flown for 3 years, thanks to Anna and her pledge not to fly. I don't have a car. I walk pretty much everywhere. I don't use single-use plastics. And so I wanted to actually just put my feet where my mouth is, really. And yeah, walk the walk, not just talk the talk. And my takeaway is that actually, because I felt quite elderly doing this, I was thinking I'm really not fit enough. And actually it turned out I wasn't really. And it was very, very difficult. And it was very physically and emotionally challenging, which is why, again, why I'm so inspired by everybody who's walked so far and done so much. But actually, if you persevere, you can do it, and you get through all of the pain and the difficult moments, and you get there in the end. So yeah, stick. And that's true of climate action, isn't it?
So my question for Lola. Lola, before you introduce the next group, what did the walk mean to you, and what do you feel like you've got out of it?
Great question, Natasha. So for me, I kind of compared the walk with the climate change battle that we are going through in two things. So the first thing is that we really never should give up. So after a long day of walking, after 20 miles of walking, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that the next day. No way. But then I think of the climate change and also about the team. I don't want to I want to do it. So I will wake up again the next day and do it. And this is what we should do for the climate change. And the next thing is, I had a note. So is 210 miles that I walked is enough? Is 510 miles enough? Is 1,000 miles enough to really find a solution for the climate change? So obviously the answer is no. I'm sorry to disappoint you all, but we all need to move faster and put all our capabilities and skills to find a solution and help our planet. So thank you. So the next with us is My Changing Planet with Arndt.
Yes, I take the short way. After doing 1,500 kilometers long way in the sphere. Maybe some of you have seen the sphere inside of the house, and I'd like to invite you to come outside and get inside, try you to promise walk a little bit. I walked in this sphere outside, starting in our hometown in Paderborn in the 30th of July, and walked about 7 countries and more than 60 cities, and meet children in schools. I visited schools because teachers invited us to
to talking about sustainability. We met Lord Mayors as well and asked them, what is your promise to Mother Earth? What is your own, or what is your city doing for the future of us? And we ask, give a promise. And I think it's a simple, I thought when I realized this idea, it just became last year, COVID stopped the COP. I said, oh no, it's impossible that such an important week is cancelled. And so I decided to get more awareness for our future and walk inside this sphere. It symbolizes we are all connected around the world and united. Everyone can feel the same, feel problems about climate change, but we can also feel connected by a promise for our future. And so we're going up to the political leaders, to football clubs, to churches, to companies, and ask people, what is your promise? Because it's not only, we are often in a bubble of climate activists, but we want to break it off and show everyone can do it. And just a little promise, which for one person who has not first think about his sustainable footprint or about his footprint, carbon footprint, can start with just a small thing, but after beginning the first step, bringing a big thing into rolling, that's what I tell the children. You are small and you have such a big chance to bring a big thing into rolling. Believe in yourself. I just started this walk, and my wife is always behind me with a bicycle and take care about me and about us in the project. And the first 7 weeks also my son did it with us. And so it's a generation project, of course. And we want to invite many people, because a promise is not a problem to give. I thought when I start, oh, 1 million promises is not a problem. It's total logic. Everyone can give a promise. Every mother can give his child a promise, every father. And so I realized it's not so easy to motivate other people who are not in the same motivation as we are. So I'd like to invite you to use this sphere outside. You can use it, maybe we can organize it to bring it to your country. But the easier way is the symbol. It's the promise giver who shows it is joyful, it is funny, because children like it very much, and even people like it to go into the sphere and dance maybe sometimes. So sustainability is a chance also for us to feel it's not a problem, or not to get out of our comfortable zone. It can be also joyful. And this promise giver, you can ask me to give you to your country. I will send you one, or to your city. And there are two of those in Germany walking from city to city, from, like I tell you, from football club to a music orchestra, to a comedian, to a political leader. And all are asked, what is your promise to Mother Earth, to our future? And if you want someone, I like to give it to you, and yes, motivate people for a promise. And when you are inside the sphere, I tell you, it's the symbol of we are all connected around the world. And when you're going inside, it's a heavy walk, 160 kilograms, so far away, but such a long distance. But the motivation is much more, and you feel the power of all of us, that we are connected and have chance to change and to feel in our heart that we are connected. And that's what the promise work will give us. Not only the mind and the brain, but the heart. And political leaders must be more motivated to use their hearts and not their mind. The scientists tell everything with their best know-how they have, and they don't need to be more, how is it in English? Yes, my German is also way. The time is also over. Up on the hill, when it's steepy, we need people to help. And then I ask people on the street, can you help me? We have to do it together. That's the symbol, of course. And when it's steepy hill down, not too steepy, but a little bit, it's joyful. Then you don't have to bring the spear into move, just he walks by itself, and then you can jogging a little bit.
Pushing it up this, so I was enlisted to help push up the hill over here. And somebody, first of all, I was terrified because I thought you were going to roll down on top of me, right? Secondly, somebody, apologies for anyone with a local accent, but somebody stopped their head out of the window and said, "You're fucking lunatic!" He was with us. He was definitely with us, but it elicited strong emotion, should we say?
Yes. But the most time we pass cities and also on the road. Mostly I walk on a normal street. In big cities, always in the traffic from Dublin or Belfast. No matter, people jump up and go on.
There was another question. Yeah.
I'm surprised so much attention, so many conversations.
Yes, we met so many helpful people. Like I think every one of us pilgrims can say the same. And this Sporo? Sporum, yes. This is a symbol of, it's a present from a Scottish man who was a bagpipe player. Just when we arrived in Prestwick, our first stop after Belfast, by the ferry come to Prestwick. After 2 hours, our sphere was on Facebook, and people come and ask, and bagpipe player gave a kilt and a sparrow and a belt as a present, and it symbolized the helpful and powerful people that stand behind us to show we are united. We will make such missions like we all are doing successful.
Thank you so much. So next we will have a representation from Clarion the Bear. And do we have Paul from My Changing Planet? Hey, great. All right. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I would like you all to close your eyes for a second and imagine that the person speaking to you is a big white bear called Clarion. You may open your eyes. Hello, I am Clarion the Bear, or perhaps I am not. Perhaps I am a metaphor, a symbol, a poster boy for climate change. I have been carried or pulled on a small trolley by my creator, Bamber Hawes, from his home of Bishop's Castle in South Shropshire. Over 22 days, we have traveled over 310 miles with the help of local people along the way. In reply to the question, Bamber, why are you making this crazy journey? He has variously replied, I am a maker of stuff. I have made all sorts of things over the last 40 years. So I decided to make a polar bear. Later, I came up with the idea of carrying him to COP26 on a climate crisis pilgrimage. And at this time, I cannot think of anything better to be doing. He also wrote, I know that carrying a sculpture of a polar bear to COP is not going to change the world. The leaders at COP will not be aware of my efforts, and they probably wouldn't care if they did know of it. But perhaps this adventure would in some way change those who join in or help us along the way. All we can do is change ourselves to turn our hearts and minds to a better, more just and regenerative new world. To the question, Bamber, do you know why people bother to join you? He replied, I asked many of the participants to tell me why they had come along to join me. Their answers range from, I like the joyous ridiculousness of it all, to I wanted to do something to show that I think that this is COP is important to me, to the bib on the chest of Clarion, which reads, everything is one, everything is love, chimed with me. To when I read that it would not be a demonstration and would not be raising money for a charity, but would be a quiet, meditative day of walking and talking, I thought, this is for me. So what did we learn? Well, I am just a helpless bear, just a volume of whiteness formed from bamboo, willow withes, and tissue paper bonded together with external PVA. So I learned to stay still and not wriggle. When I was carried upright by the humans, it was scary at first. I found that I collect leaves, berries, and nuts in my ears when brushing under overhanging trees. And then when I am in the rain all day, my skin gets whiter. What Bamber claims to have learned is how to graciously accept the generosity of strangers. They did not have to offer help, but if they did, it was presumably because they wanted to be part of this with their aid. He also found his voice, and now he won't shut up. After a lifetime of worry and his boyhood stammer coming back, he found he could speak and be heard. Also, he realized that most people do care about the climate and were supportive with waves and cheers and friendly car horn toots. And over the weeks, only about 8 people were aggressive, rude, or insulting. It's all over now. We made it. More than 3 weeks of walking, more than 14 miles every day, and in Scotland, mostly in the rain, we have finally got here. And what have we achieved? Well, we seem to caught the imagination of the public and the media, partly because of my gigantesque size, my beauty, my grace, my lovely quizzical expression, and less so because of the wet, sweaty, puny human man handling me over this weird, green, wet country to this rocky city with its visiting leaders, those of them who could be bothered to come. We have stopped at many primary schools along the way, and Bamber has spoken to the children about what he was doing. I hope that our visits will be remembered by those small humans and perhaps will spark an interest in climate change and a love for polar bears. Every day we were joined by such lovely, wonderful people. They talked for hours and hours while transporting me, and it seemed to make them happy and maybe a little bit wiser. I would like now to thank all my helpers, my creator, Bamber. Well, of course, I would say that as he's putting these words in my mouth. Thank you, Kusami, who has been with us all the way in your van, arranging beds for us and walkers to join us and dealing with my fans. Thank you, Face, for the website and ongoing updating of it. And finally, thank you to all those who walked, carried me, put us up, and encouraged us. What I know you want to hear is what I would say to those leaders across town. You need to be bold with your promises of positive change in the way your countries will act in the future. You need to be fair and just to those in the less developed parts of the world, as ultimately we must all be one to survive. The scientists and specialists should be your guides, not the economists or not the party activists who say it will be bad for your chances or re-election. You know what you need to do. You know how to achieve the results that will make a difference. How stupid are you going to be not to just get done and do them now? This word is such a tiny speck of blue in the vastness of space. It is so perfect. It suits us so well, us bears, you humans, and all the wonderful living things that live here. How mad would it be to lose it all? I know that some rich humans may well be able to continue living here as the world becomes more and more uninhabitable to others, but they will all be cursing you every day for not making the decisions that you need to make this week. Please God that you are brave enough to do the work that you need to do. Thank you, Bomber and Clarion, and we're really sorry we missed you today. So next, Paul from My Changing Planet, and afterwards, Planet Mark.
Everybody see the bag?
No, it's coming back. So next is Paul from My Changing Planet.
Thanks. My name is Jackson. I'm a filmmaker. This is Paul. He's a wildlife vet, and we sailed 1,000 miles to get to COP.
Hi. All right. So
I'll just add as well that neither of us knew how to sail before this as well.
Yeah. I'll open. I think maybe we'll go like 2 minutes, 2 minutes or
Go
something
for
like that. 5 minutes in total, I think, right? So, yeah. So my name is Paul Ramos. I'm a wildlife vet, and I was in my mind the creator of the project called My Changing Planet. And I mean, the reason for that title is kind of obvious now. I mean, things are changing all around us. It's not part of the future. It's actually part of the present. My reasoning behind that, what's bothered me most really in the last 10 years, especially, is that as a wildlife vet, whenever something kind of darkens your doorway, comes to you as a problem, it's almost never about the animal. When it's animals sick or injured, it's almost always because something's not right in the environment. It could be the nutrition, the social structure, the UV lighting, something's not quite right from where it's come from. And the same is true for us as well. So preventative medicine, preventing problems in the first place is my real passion. And I'm exhausted from trying to just be so reactive. So my main passion over the last several years has been more about climate change, because it is the one biggest problem that overrides all. That if we prevent that, we can really escape so much pain and misery for all of us, for billions of people. And so that's what I'm trying to dedicate my life to in terms of being a storyteller more than a clinician. So I got in contact with Jackson.
Yeah, Paul reached out to me with this crazy idea to sail to COP. Neither of us having any clue how to sail. And the whole idea just kind of snowballed. It was like one thing led to the next. We found a captain with a boat who was willing to take us. We found another filmmaker who was joining us on board. And Paul found another presenter called Sean. And the whole thing kind of just took off over the last 12 months. And it's a TV series that we've been developing, just kind of consuming our lives over the last 12 months.
Yeah, Jackson's actually shot for Nat Geo, Discovery, Animal Planet. I've presented for National Geographic as well. But this is all a personal project for all of us, all of our own backs and our own time off. But basically what we've done is we've sailed 1,000 miles from the south of England to Glasgow via the Hebrides. Of course, it never, never happened as planned. That's because, with nature, not even day by day, but almost sort of 6 hourly, we had to decide what we can do and where we could go. But the purpose was to visit sort of the wildest places and wildest animals of the British Isles, to see how things are changing, what's at threat, and using what to help to safeguard our future. So we've done things like helped with the rescue of seals, mainly baby seals, worked with WWF and Project Seagrass and looking at what's carbon sequestration in the seas. We've stayed on remote, windswept islands, and
Not by choice, but
not by choice.
because we got hit by 40-mile-an-hour winds and 2-meter
Yeah.
waves, and we had to bail off at Lundy Island and sleep in a church for 2 days.
Yeah, yeah, and so
Um,
that's where you meet people. And
But one of the biggest stories that developed out of all of it is this idea of listening to the oceans. And we ended up working with a amazing guy called Professor Steve Simpson, who's a marine biologist and underwater sound specialist. And along our journey, we've been putting microphones under the water to listen to the seas, and different habitats have different sounds, as do different animals. And we've been piecing that together to create music that's been played this week at COP in the Blue Zone in the Halls of Power. And we also did some projection and artwork as well. So we've been sort of combining science and art and bringing all that together, and creating this kind of this idea of citizen science as well, that everyday people can contribute to valuable data that can be used by people like Steve Simpson, and Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust is another one that we work with, in order to better understand what's under the water. Because if you can't see it, you can't connect with it. If you can't connect with it, you don't care about it. And oceans are 70% of the planet. And they're kind of like the bigger brother that's telling us to stop and to think and to listen, but most people are ignoring it.
ultimately, this project of sailing 1,000 miles was about listening and connecting. So listening to the oceans, the change has actually occurred right already before us. We've actually proven that with something we found through the hydrophones, and connecting to the ocean and to those around us.
We actually found new data for climate change as well, which is quite significant
today, but
yeah,
we only have 5 minutes here. But we made it. We're here. We're alive. Yeah.
You actually sailed past my backyard. I live
Really?
Just opposite the Shanks on Paris and Lewis.
How awesome.
All right.
So I'm really excited about what you've done. This hydrophone.
The beauty of that is that previously hydrophone technology was quite expensive and not really available to most people. Nowadays, people use it for listening to bats and birds. You know, you have these hydrophones. With a simple waterproof casing, they found that you actually can use it. And what you can, sound travels so much better underwater, and you can listen to crustaceans, like both sounds of nature and sounds of humankind. But anybody can do it for less than 100 quid off the back of a paddleboard, stand-up paddleboard, even sailing, which we found out when you're sailing. And that will add to really this sort of the data gathering that we need to take, that we can actually put and dump into one place, both for artists to use as an open source sound to make music with, but also for scientists to figure out, one, how our seas are changing. You can actually hear the sounds of recovery. You can hear the sounds of loss, and you can hear the sounds of new species that are warm water species moving into colder waters that are no longer cold, which is what we found actually. Thanks.
Brilliant. One more question, anybody? Okay, big hand. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Paul and Jackson. So next we will have Planet Mark and talking about the Carbon Battle Bus. And we have Rail to the Cup. No? Then, yeah. Perfect.
Hello, everyone. Wow. You guys, it's humbling, really, hearing all these stories of the journeys that you've all taken to be here, and what people are doing to make a difference. And really, that's what we've been doing. So we didn't walk, I'm ashamed to say now, or sail. We travel around in a 100% electric bus for the past 3 months. So we've been traveling all over the UK and Northern Ireland. In Northern Ireland, it was a double-decker hydrogen bus we went around in. And the big thing we were doing was gathering carbon stories. So it was about looking for tangible examples of what organizations, community groups, people, local councils, what are people doing to reduce carbon emissions now? What's already working? What's not? What are the challenges that people are facing in doing it? And so we've been working with Carbon Copy, with Rick and the team who are doing the Walk2COP26. We've been in conversation with Sam and the Goal 13 Impact Platform and all sorts. Basically, it's all this story gathering, because what we're hoping we can achieve, and if you go to carboncopy.eco now, you can find examples, hundreds, thousands of examples of what is working. You know, examples from what organizations are doing to install solar panels on their rooftops, or what people and community groups are doing to insulate their houses. All of these sorts of things, because we want to inspire people to take action. So I would encourage you to go and check those out. But the one thing we have noticed everywhere that we've gone is the power of community. And I think we're seeing that again here today. But the big challenge we all face is, you know, in this room here today, we've got a wonderful group of people who know the problem and the challenge that we face. Our challenge is, how do we reach the people who aren't necessarily switched on to that yet? And connect those people. And what you've all been doing is one of those ways, because you've been traveling around in spheres and with boats and in boats, which gets people going, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And you have a conversation and you open someone's eyes, and it's just that process of helping people understand. We've seen amazing examples in towns, like in Dundee last week. We heard about a community fridge. I thought, what a wonderful idea. They had 90 people a day coming in there, and it didn't have the stigma that comes with food banks often, and other wonderful services and things that people tap into. They were feeding 1,500 people a week. And it was a service that had a place, it had a location that people were coming into every day, and the volunteers were talking to people about climate change. And so these sorts of ways that we can get more people aware of stuff, and getting organizations pledging credible targets to reduce their carbon emissions, is what it's all been about. And it's been humbling and a real privilege to get to talk to so many people and hear these examples of action, because there's a lot to despair about at the moment. And the thing that gives me hope, and indeed many of the rest of our team hope, is hearing stories like this, like you're sharing today. So thank you. It's really amazing.
Questions for us? So can I ask, who's typically been through the bus? Is it children? Is it business people? Is it who are sitting in the bus and listening?
We've had all sorts, and actually we've been hosted by local councils. So all the local councils are feeding into this as well, across the whole country, helping to feed carbon stories into the Carbon Copy platform. And so it's been a broad mix. We have a lot of people who just have a general interest. We have people from organizations and businesses. We've had very big businesses come along. So in Perth, we heard from the likes of Stagecoach and Highland Spring Water. But we've also had very small organizations and community groups talking about community fridges, community wardrobes, community energy projects and things like that. But we've also had school children. So in Dundee, we had a whole series of primary schools come and talk about why they cared about climate change. We've often been hosted by universities in Guildhall, and we've done ones in Belfast Titanic museums, all sorts. So we've been to over 90 places. We've had over 5,000 people come to events, both online and offline. It was all free, all just come along, and in every location, the best bit was we'd get up and we'd share a bit of carbon jargon busting. We do sort of what's net zero versus carbon neutral versus carbon negative versus climate positive, all these different terms that people are hearing. What are the scopes of emissions? What does this mean? Why does it matter what people are measuring? And making sure that when people say, hey, we're carbon neutral, well, what did you measure? Those sorts of things. But so that would be a component, a bit of education. But then the second component was, the major component was the carbon stories, where we'd have 4 or 5 local speakers identified through local council, local climate groups, and others to come and share their stories about what was working, what wasn't, and share their advice for what other people should be doing.
Thank you, Andrew. Next, we will have then Rail to the COP, and after that, Paddling for a Brighter Future.
Hello. This is quite high. Yeah, I'm actually happy with the previous speaker, because I felt so lazy getting here by train after all these people that walked here. Anyways, I'm Mara de Pater. I'm from the Netherlands and part of a youth collective And I think I'll just start telling my story from the start, which is in 2019. Me and 3 other people that I met at some climate event came up with the idea to sail to COP25 in Chile. It was an amazing project. We arranged a sailing ship, a tall ship, and got 40 people across the Atlantic Ocean, but the COP was being moved. So it didn't happen in Chile, it moved to Madrid, and we couldn't make it in time. So that's a pretty sad story. The good thing is, on the ship, we had a think tank. We came up with a lot of solutions, mainly about traveling more sustainably, changing policies to promote sustainable travel, and also bringing aviation under the Paris Agreement, which it currently isn't. And one thing that we came up with, I think the day that we heard that COP was being cancelled or moved, or maybe the day after, but very, very shortly after, we came up with the idea to rail to the COP. So at first we started calling for people that were in Europe that had flight tickets to get to Chile, to rebook those, not into flight tickets to Madrid, but train tickets to Madrid. So we started coining this term, rail to the COP. We also got a youth group replacing our role at the COP. So these were people that were in Europe. They took our accreditation and badges and started telling our story and of course their personal story as well. We were on a tropical island. It was actually quite amazing. Doing the COP online, supporting the people that were in Madrid. And they were handing out buttons that said rail to the COP. And then I think kind of as a joke, they said, next time in Glasgow, we're going to charter an entire train. And it was a bit of a joke, but I think the promise sounded so real that we had to do it. So that's what we did this year. We teamed up with some rail partners. So that's ProRail, which is the Dutch infrastructure rail manager, the Dutch Railways and Eurostar, and then in the end also Avanti, to charter an entire train going from Amsterdam through Rotterdam, Brussels, London, and then we had to switch trains, get on an Avanti train all the way up to Glasgow. So we arrived with 500 people on the train last Saturday. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it took quite some organizing to get all of these people together, but mostly to organize the program that we did on board. So we didn't want the train ride to be boring and have people sit in a train for 10 hours. We organized a program where people were really mixed in terms of background. So we had delegates on board, we had a lot of youth on board because we're a youth collective. We had NGOs on board. And we tried to mix them, have like these 4 seaters with 1 delegate, 1 NGO representatives, a bunch of youth, and then provide them with themes to talk about. So each coach had actually a central theme, a few facilitators, some experts, and people were sort of forced to talk about this topic. And in the end, we harvested some outcomes. Again, these were mostly around sustainable travel, but also in a somewhat broader sense about the COP, about climate justice, themes like that. And well, now we're here, I would say. I think I think that's it. Some of our organizing team are accredited, so they're in the blue zone and green zone. We're also doing a lot of things in like the alternative spaces. So this morning we had a follow-up event to make sure that kind of the conversations that were started on the train still have some following. And we're probably also organizing a few more kind of walk-in informal sessions. We're usually at Ottoman Coffee House in the afternoon. It's a really amazing coffee house. So if you want to meet some people from our train, just step in. That's it. Thanks.
Why did you have to switch trains?
I think, but I'm not entirely sure. I think the Eurostar cannot go on the tracks through, yeah. this is actually one of the outcomes of the workshops that we did on the train, that should be way better, like connected, easier to, yeah, to connect these trains. Exactly. No, so some people, because we're mainly youth, some people already had to be in uni or work again. So some of us already went home, others are going this weekend. I'm going to stay the full 2 weeks, but I think the majority has left already. I do know that most people will take a train or a coach back. Yeah.
One more question, then let's move on.
Yeah, that was mostly because of some small Swedish girl. that wasn't us. Yeah, so we had a real advantage that we were in contact with ProRail already. So for Sail to the COP, they were one of the partners. They had sent one person, like one young employee, on the sailing ship, and then another employee replaced her in Madrid. So we had really good and personal contacts there. They totally believed in our plan, and like from day one, we're allies also in getting in touch with the other rail companies, and especially Eurostar was kind of hard to get on board. But in the end, I think after working with them for a little bit, they totally believed in our plans. And I think especially in the last few weeks, we like became a real team, really worked as a team of colleagues.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mara. Next, we will have Pedaling for a Brighter Future. And after that, do we have not one more? Yeah.
So everybody, we've got about 4 journeys left. So let's up the noise a bit on the clapping to keep us alive here. And then of course we've got a bar after that. Okay, ready? So.
Okay. What if you had a vision to empower the youth across the planet?
To engage every generation to make the difference that our planet needs now.
Hi, I'm Rima, and I've been campaigning for zero waste since 2006 by dragging a tire in marathons and ultra marathons internationally. I've caused smaller events in the UK to be zero waste, and I have influenced the operations and the offerings that international marathon events are offering right now to their runners of up to about 50,000, as well as a couple of smaller organizations like the British Council to go zero waste. And my official title is the Tire Lady.
That's Tire Lady, not Tired Lady. Hi, my name is Tess. I am an adventurer, an author, a charity fundraiser, not a cyclist at all. I, over the last few years, have collected thousands of messages of peace from individuals and taken them and spoken them out at the far high points of the planet to help world peace. And my official title is the first granny to race to the South Pole.
I think super granny. Anyway, this is a vision that we've achieved.
By cycling 600 miles, self-sustainably, self-supported, we've had no backup whatsoever, a team of 3 with an age range of 60 years, myself, Rima, and my 13-year-old granddaughter, Elsie, who, of course, has now had to go back to school.
Yeah. And on this journey, we've collected climate action pledges from individuals across the world, as well as we visited 13 schools and collected their climate action pledges.
So our pledges, we have spoken out here in Glasgow, and we have also presented them to world leaders.
And we also, on the journey, we went from one significant tree to another significant tree, starting from the Ankerwick tree, which is where the Magna Carta was born, which is rights for humans. But we need rights for our planet now.
And the burden that we've been carrying for our planet is that on our bikes, we've been carrying all our kit, all our camping kit, which has been very, very heavy and not to be recommended if you're a granny.
And we ended at the Tree of Hope in Kelvin Way, where we read out all the climate action pledges that were sent to us.
But we have importantly nurtured our little 13-year-old to be a voice for her generation, to inspire her generation and beyond.
And well, some final things that we did is that we did raise some funds for 3 charities, which is Protect Our Winters, Sustrans, which enables active travel, and the third is the World Wildlife Fund, and that was for the extinction of tigers at the moment.
So we would like to finish with the words of our 13-year-old and her generation, and a couple of quotes from her.
Okay. So this is her observations. All around me, I see adults making a mess in the world, and they're leaving it all for us to clean up.
And we are all pieces of the same puzzle, and the puzzle is not completed until everyone has done their bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what I will say is we bumped into these guys twice, if not 3 times. We met Elsie, absolutely phenomenal, very modest, clearly highly articulate, absolute inspiration. And you know, carting that stuff around. I'm not sure, did you all share the load? Did you? I thought I saw one person carrying the load, but
She had a bit more.
Anyway, absolutely phenomenal. Great journey.
Can I also just want to thank the YCCN group who have supported us. We met them, well, I met them in Runnymede and helped their group through and made lunch for them. But they have been fantastic for us, especially Jen. Thank you so very much for what you've done to help us to find accommodation along the way as well. So thank you very much for that.
Apart from the fact when we were sleeping in haystacks and hedges and things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next we will have Sophie's Road to Glasgow, and after that, Carlos from Marcha Glasgow. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, now I feel lazy again after the previous speakers, because we came cycling from the Netherlands on electrical assisted cargo bikes. But to make it a little bit heavier, we carried with us a huge load of books that we spread around. And these were books, 4 different books with ideas about sustainability from the Netherlands. And the most important book we brought with us, that is actually why I'm dressed like this. This is First Aid for Climate Change. And one of the most powerful themes in this book is, how can you supersize your positive impact on the world? What have you got to offer to the world if you're worried about, let's say, sustainability? What can you do? How can you enlarge this? And we call this Sophie's Road to Glasgow, because Sophie is actually the cargo bike that my partner in crime developed himself. So he is a hairdresser, just a hairdresser. And instead of sitting in his dark office all day, he decided, no, I'm going to cycle towards my customers, and I'll take my cutting gear with me. I'll have an electrical assistant cargo bike, but I don't want to use a socket, so I'll have solar panels on there. And he made an amazing contraption with 2 wings to triple the size of the solar panel. It's amazing, amazing thing to see. And this is Sophie, the solo cargo bike. Having developed this, he decided, you know what, I want to show this to more people. Like, this is what you can do. So then he accompanied me on my trip to Glasgow with this bag of a big box of books. And the second thing we did was to be really visible with our slow travel in the landscape. We cycled mostly alongside busy roads, so then there's a lot of car traffic seeing us cycle over there. Yeah, I think that is something that people can't ignore very easily. And along the road, we talked to lots of people. But we did a third thing also. I happen to have a little bit of experience with the improvisation theater. So I decided to develop for this road tour, especially a show. It's called The Sweet Spots for Sustainable Happiness. And I performed this show already at 5 places along the road. So in Dordrecht, where I came from, so that was easy, but also in London and Oxford, that didn't go so well. But in Manchester, it went really well, and also in Straven, just below Glasgow. And I'll share with you a couple of things that I did over there. Are you ready? Carbon tax, every item you price it, black and white, gold and shite. You tell merchants to charge me prices so true for earth, green and blue forever. Carbon tax, guard my planet forever. I made up this tune all by myself. But for carbon tax to work, we need strong government. And I'm afraid that some of the most powerful economies in the world, the United States, the UK also, sorry to say, but also Canada and Australia, they have systems of government that aren't able to make their own people happy very much. Also, they are tempted to have a huge footprint, ecological footprint, and they're not doing the best thing for other countries in the world. So if you look at the Good Country Index, then these countries don't score too well. And that brings me to the next song, if I have time. Okay, and this was actually written by a person from Straven. I couldn't come up with a good song to sing about proportional representation, but he managed to do that. Okay. Proportional representation, the way to a fair, happy nation. Proportional representation, the way we all should go. In the past, we had kings and knaves, even as far as masters and slaves. Most now have first past the post, but the system the world likes the most. Proportional representation, the way to a fair, happy nation. Proportional representation, the way we all should go. Proportional representation, the way to a fair, happy nation. Proportional representation, the world where we all should go. And the World Happiness Report came out this year, and for the first time now, the 10 happiest countries in the world all have proportional representation. Come on, don't ignore that. Any questions?
Thank you, David. And next, March at Glasgow with Carlos.
No song. We did song, but I was not in charge of the mic, so I wasn't gonna sing. So our group gathered formed in Zaragoza. It's a joint venture between Extinction Rebellion Zaragoza and a local ecologist group called Ecologistas en Acción, or Ecologists in Action. So that idea started like 2 years ago. And back then I thought, oof, this guy who proposed it has much faith that will happen, but so many challenges and so difficult, and who is going to go when I go to England in autumn to walk for a month? So, and then the COP was canceled, but fast forward, we made it. And We started 10 and we finished 15. So more people have joined our way. We started in Portsmouth to walk, and we finished in Glasgow 3 days ago. I don't know, I'll tell you a lot of things. We have received so much support and so many welcomes along the way. We have made majors, we haven't paid for a night. The nights, all the accommodation has been almost all provided by families and individuals who have wanted us for a night, and they have given us so much food. We couldn't eat it quick enough. So our van, we had a support vehicle. So it started to accumulate in our van. And at the end, we had to finish it all. First day, it started to rain in the morning. We had a very long walk along the roads because we walked roads most of the time to get shorter because we don't have enough time to go through the nice footpaths. So it started to rain and then continued to rain and rained on. And we finished drenched and very soaked and went on. So that was the first taste of the march. And we were like, oh, it's gonna be like this for a month. We knew it rained, but so it was a bit intimidating, but next day it was not so bad. And actually the weather altogether was all right until Glasgow. But here we don't have to walk so much. And once we got here, most of our group has returned, but the ones we have remained, we are participating in protests. And today there was one at noon against greenwashing, and we have been there, and we just came out of there. And at one point it got a bit spicy, as they say it in the jargon of Extinction Rebellion. And I learned a new word, which is to kettle. So the police can kettle you, which means it cannot go forward or back or anywhere. So we've been blocked this way for the last hours, and we managed to convince well, Becky convinced a policewoman. I just went through and we got out of there and we came straight here. So we have missed most of the presentations. So I don't really know what I need to talk more on. More details, more questions, maybe. We have this, which are wristbands. We have made for supporters and sympathizers, and we have leftovers. So I'm gonna give you one to each of you. And I know how many we had because we had many supporters and we gave them to each of them, and we still have lots, so I think it was a miscalculation. So, question? Or clapping, maybe.
What else in Glasgow? Have you brought a particular message, or have you?
Well, once we've been getting more and more media attention as we got closer to Glasgow, and in Glasgow so much. So nowadays we are doing like 2 or 3 interviews a day in which we try to pass along the message that what happens in this summit is so important for all of us, and that will affect future generations, that there's a question of climate justice, that there's a big effort to do, that we go against an iceberg, we still have time to change direction if we make this effort. But it seems that we need to raise much more awareness, we need to talk much more to the media, and we need to push for a better deal at each opportunity we have. So that's why I keep saying all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
Gracias, Carlos. Not one more. Are you ready? And then one more push after that, and yeah, that's it.
So 2 more, everybody. So not one more. Up on the stage, please. Did we know? Okay. Do you want to? Then if you can speak from there, and you're not on camera, I think, right? Can your voice be live streamed or not? We can kill it. We can kill it. Oh, and then kill it. Okay. Push. Do you want to get up? And then we'll kill the live stream and get these guys, yeah? Push. You've heard the rules, Push, yeah? Okay, you've only got 5 minutes to do. So you can do 2 minutes and then 3 minutes. Okay. Oh, sorry, we haven't got it. So, can you just speak? You spoke beautifully last time. Yeah, round the corner. Sorry? Yeah. So you can film, yeah. It's just that you can't film those guys over there. Yeah, we're filming anyway, so yeah, but then cut it off before you start. Okay, go for it.
Here you go. Hello, everyone. I suppose I should start apologizing. I'm sorry for coming late. And also want to say that how grateful I am. I have this little opportunity. But my purpose for coming here, not to tell my story, honestly. I wanted to listen to every single story that has been told. I was starting to walk for climate justice from 2009. A time I would have never seen anything like this. So I want to start off by saying, give all of ourselves a big hand for this fantastic journey of being here. The most amazing thing, honestly, believe me when I say that, when I started walking in 2009, I worked for Oxfam, and the key issue at that time, mostly COP meetings were about environment, not necessarily wrongly or badly. But there was no discussion about the human habitat and the interdependence. Oxfam was supposed to enter that because our investment in people living in poverty, I say leaving because they can get out, was they're losing out. Because people living in poverty are extremely vulnerable to any external shock. There's nothing as bad as the climatic differential and its impact on the poorest people. And I had the honor of going across the world from Papua to Uganda and meeting frontline people who are being impacted, particularly women. And those stories were really heartbreaking, disturbing, and almost made me paralyzed. But the important thing was these stories came from women in the front line. They continue to be impacted. And the message out of that, I got the two things. One, a number of them, the women who were being impacted, always wanted to reimagine a life of hope. Please do not ever forget that. They all, no matter how backward they were, they wanted to come back. A farmer wanted to resow next year. It is the hope that I carry. The second thing is that I'm inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, and he said, if you do see injustice, you got to do something about it yourself. That's why he said, be the change you want to be. I was an Oxfam full-paid campaigner, but at that time, I must say that we were over preoccupied with the intellectualization of issues and writing policy papers. We continue to do that even now. So, but Britain at that time was totally unaware of what is happening elsewhere. This was 11 years ago, can you believe me? Yeah. So I took my holiday and walked from Oxford to Copenhagen. That was the beginning of my walk journey. And since then, every time the leaders meet, I undertake a walk. This is my 4th walk, but 2nd conference walk. So far, I have covered 32 million steps. And this journey across this beautiful island to which I belong, I hardly knew about it because I hardly lived here for about 30 years. It's been one of the most fantastic journeys, if I can say that. I've been hosted by 22 people in each home. And in each of those homes, I've been given food, even bed, hot water shower, sometimes a bit of whiskey. Stories of the past, the present, and the future of family. Each one, like if you, I do not know whether you know, we used to have this old projector where you put a slide, and each one is a great story. And each one said they are aware of this, they are aware of the problem. And in each of the homes, I saw individuals taking steps which I did not see 11 years ago. And even children. I met about 2,000 children in various schools. And I brought more than 2,000 cards, each one to blow your mind off. I just handed over to the CEO of Oxfam saying, I, like many other people, not allowed to go to the great blue zone, even the green zone only one day. Our sense of participation is completely removed. Will you please hand it over to the Prime Minister or to Mr. Sharma? He said, I'll do my best. So that's what happened today afternoon. That's what happened today. The few things I want to say, emission-driven growth has created obscene level of wealth. Do you agree? Enormous. And it has also contributed to removing some poverty. But at what cost? It plundered this planet. It has left us not in a climate crisis, but a civilizational and planetary crisis. And we have to solve that. Number two, it has left this planet highly unequal in every sense of the word. Never we saw such inequality. Number three, it has created a perfect storm of situation where smallest conflict can become the biggest. A household fighting for a bucket of water can actually nearly kill each other. People depending on pasture land are losing out and fighting. A small household to a region to national and international. It's so complicated. So I support, along with my next generation leader from India, Germany, who is a filmmaker, who came all the way to film my journey all through. It was never done before. That's the one thing I wanted to show. Please give him a big hand for carrying out. I'm inspired by each of you. I don't think we should give up. I have hope. Because of all the young people and the students who know so much. Hope is the spark, and the spark is the hope. Can you repeat after me? Hope is the spark, and the spark is the hope. Thank you.